Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to HIMediaTV. I am your host, Evan from HIMediaTV, and welcome back to HIMedia Headlines for today, February the 1st, 2026. Okay. Hear me out. There are opinions to be thought about this. PlayStation patents touchscreen controller with no actual buttons. Sony has been granted a patent for a controller with a single physical button as revealed by some newly published regulatory filings. While the concept lacks many of the traditional inputs, it represents only one possible implementation. The patent focuses primarily on input technology rather than hinting at future PlayStation controller designs. Thankfully. There are at least a new handful of controller-related Sony patents are granted and published each year, where these filings vary widely in terms of design and function. Most incorporate some form of physical buttons. Listen, I do not want them, I think a big aspect, I would argue probably one of the most important aspects of video games and the experience of playing video games, particularly with a controller, and even with a mouse and keyboard too, because there's a lot of keyboards that take these kind of ergonomics into questions as well. How a controller is designed is really critical for the experience. Say what you will about, PlayStation and all that. The PlayStation controller is, the PlayStation 4 controller, and I would probably even argue, actually now that I think about it, I would even say the PlayStation 5 controller kind of expands on what makes the PlayStation 4 controller that so good, is how it is designed to sit in your hand. Like each button, the joysticks, they have little dips in them to make it easier for your finger to slot in, and there's just tons of tiny little aspects of these controllers, down to the buttons being concave and everything, that is super duper important to the feel and the experience of this. And the concept of, and thankfully I don't think Sony would be dumb enough to try and do a buttonless controller where you can program all the buttons and have it be wherever on the button thing you want, however many, but I don't think they would be dumb enough to do that. It'd be an interesting concept, but I don't actually think it would be, a successful controller type. But, I say they wouldn't be dumb enough to do that, but, people, the rich and powerful, unfortunately, something about being very, very wealthy makes them make stupid decisions that normal people wouldn't, so never say never. That being said, I think that having a controller that's all programmable buttons and is basically a fucking touchscreen at the end of the day is not great. I think that goes to without saying. I think that it would be, if anything, at best a novelty and at worst a disaster. Fingers crossed that they, I wouldn't mind some level of adding a programmable button on other aspects of it, but you would probably definitely absolutely want traditional buttons. There's a reason why I would argue that the PlayStation 5 controller is probably one of the better, if not one of the best controllers to for playing games. Now, don't get me wrong. I personally find the Xbox controllers to be more ergonomic for how I play, specifically in the sense of hand placement. I play a lot of Soulsborne type of games, and so you do end up, while playing that, you end up doing from time to time some odd hand and finger placements, and I find the Xbox controllers for those types of odd finger placements to be significantly better in a lot of respects. But again, I've used multiple different controllers, and I'd say for most non-power users, people who just want something that's just a good controller to play the game, I'd say the PlayStation 5 is probably the best. I would argue for more rapid gaming, more high octane stuff, the Xbox controllers are generally better, but that I think is less on numbers and more just my personal preference, but what have you. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this episode of HIMedia Headlines for today, February the 1st, 2026. If you liked this episode, please consider joining our Discord. We've got a really, really awesome group of folks, and we'd really, really like to have you. Pretty damn proud of the community I've built, and please join. It's a fun time. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to HIMediaTV. I have been your host, Evan from HIMediaTV, and I will see you guys next time.